Political Reflections, my piece, my weekend piece was titled The Wind of Change. I listened to President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Union speech delivered in Cape Town on Friday night, and I thought to myself, this man has been writing this speech since 1994. From the narrow perspective of the markets, the speech was as loud a buy signal as you're ever going to hear. There is plenty of noise in this new 21st century now in which we all exist, but since Davos, President Ramaphosa has been emitting a very clear signal, and that signal is to buy the ZAR and the South African stock market. South African markets are in a process of pricing out a quite savage Zuma haircut, in brackets discount, and might even move to a Ramaphosa premium. President Ramaphosa spoke at some point in every single South African language, even Afrikaans. And this tilt back towards the language and mood of the Rainbow Nation, which mood was encapsulated by Mandela donning a Springboks jersey during the 1995 Rugby World Cup, had everyone dancing in the aisles at the end of his speech. The president quoted the South African icon Hugh Masekela, "I want to be there when the people start to turn it around." You want to be long, limit long, Ramaphosa. My mind then looped back to another speech which was delivered to the Parliament in Cape Town, but that speech was delivered on February the 3rd, 1960, and by a British Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan. He said, "The wind of change is blowing through this continent. Whether we like it or not, this growth of national consciousness is a political fact. Africa is not a country, is a ubiquitous meme, and at its core is an absolute truth. The continent is non-linear. Kinshasa is not Addis Ababa, is not Lagos, is not Pretoria. However, a wind of change is blowing through this continent." Condoleezza Rice, who served as Secretary of State, said, "What we're seeing here is, in a sense, the birth pangs of a new Middle East. And whatever we do, we have to be certain that we're pushing forward to the new Middle East, not going back to the old Middle East. In brackets, replace Middle East with Africa." Notwithstanding Jacob Zuma's truculence and some moments of high drama, the Rainbow Nation gave birth to President Ramaphosa with relative ease. The former liberation movements in Angola and Zimbabwe are trying to reinvent themselves, and surely further political longevity will be decided by the degree with which Lourenço and Mnangagwa break with the past. There are reasons for optimism. If this were a continuum, then the likes of Ethiopia, DR Congo, and some others are at the extreme end of the continuum. We know these countries are in the delivery room. Ethiopia, a poster child for GDP growth and where many investors saw a China version 2 type opportunity, has reinstituted a state of emergency, and its prime minister has stepped aside. President Trump has a core support of about 30% of the population. The core support of the Ethiopian regime is 6%. There is no mercurial Meles Zenawi to sit atop it all, and the situation is no longer tenable, and a tipping point could be very close. President Kabila has finally acceded to entering the delivery room, but this is clearly a problematic delivery. I concluded by saying the wind of change is blowing through this continent. Ramaphosa, I watched what he was saying on Friday night, and he said our country has entered a period of change. Together we're going to make history. And then he quoted Hugh Masekela, "I want to be there when the people start to turn it around." Then he said, "Now is the time, now is the time." The speech was very strong, I thought. As I said in my article, I think we've been preparing for it since 1994.